Now, today we want to kind of continue on our series, which we kind of stopped for 1 month because of Pentecost. We have been talking about Mount Sinai, fire, cloud, golden calf. They've been talking about that for 1 month. But I want to come back to this, and it's because we are really that breed of people that is being prepared, but at the same time, as tension is happening, I believe the Lord wants to give us some understanding and revelation, okay? Now, by the way, today, right after this, we have continuing our BGR training, right? So right at the end, if you are not involved, you have to make yourself disappear, right? But anyway, the cafe is open down there. If you want to kind of have a hideout, you can go there. So this is a series that I've been thinking for a long time already, and we're in part 2 today. So we did part 1 almost 1 month ago. We talked about the body, the function. I'll do a summary. But today we want to talk about house ministry. Everyone says house. Remember a couple of years ago, 5782, Hebrew year 5782, we talked about building the foundation for the house of God. I hope you have been paying attention those times, because how we build the house is going to be very, very similar. And I've been thinking about this. I just felt like there is a portion of house ministry that is very, very important. Even though you are so into the marketplace, you can't do it without the house. Because you just think about Judah. You can't really do this in the marketplace. But it's going to be a kind of hybrid. Now, I'm not going to talk about Judah today. That will be in part 4, hybrid equipping. But these are the things that we want to navigate through. And coming towards the end, we want to talk about the tension, because there will be tension. Some of you are very marketplace, and everything you process, you are thinking about outside, you think about society, you think about nation. But others, your gifting are more for the house, and it's very, very important. You can't do one without the other. Now, let me just quickly give you a rundown very quickly why we are doing this teaching, because since last year, Feast of Tabernacle, we've been doing teaching on Nehemiah. And Nehemiah is so interesting, right? He was from marketplace, and all of a sudden, God brought him into the house. And he sought out the temple and things like that. So I'm thinking, well, if God can do that, he can do the other way around also. So God is not religious. Everyone say God is not religious. So that's one of the things that is very, very important. We don't get our own mindset in terms of what we want to do, but allow the Spirit of God to continue to lead us. So one of the reasons why we're doing this, firstly, we are seeing a major manifestation of kingdom in marketplace. And it's going to happen, and so many prophetic words, you hear about the resources. Everyone always get excited with resource, right? The camel, the gold, and things like that. So I think a couple of days ago, there was news about, the Sarawak government found some reserve. Now, by the way, that's not new news, okay? And that's why a lot of people get very excited. Actually, the news has been around for a long time. But the thing about all the resources is your cost of extracting must be lower than the cost. Actually, everywhere you drill, you get something. But the issue, it's true. The issue is whether your return can cover your cost. So inland drilling, mining is very, very expensive. So these are the things that God will give revelation for people to say, hey, there's a business plan, you can do it, and you get a very comfortable profit ratio, things like that. So what do we mean by marketplace? We're talking about culture molders. We're talking about places that affect culture. So today we see, we've been doing BGR yesterday, and every time, even A Time to Succeed, every time we talk about LGBTQ, all those things, people get agitated. You know why? Because the world has been discipled by these influences. So this is why it is a battle of culture. The ecclesia, the church, has not been engaging this in the right way. So that's why we have to go in, and by the way, in the end, the truth will set people free. So we have to be able to go there into the gate of influence. So we already say culture molders, trends, young people talk about trends now, talk about values, global power, how you cultivate. Then, of course, gate of influence, really at the end, it is all these things, the wealth, the knowledge, the power, and it's really the place you are pursuing the minds and hearts. See, at the end of the day, emotion is involved. And you do social media, you do promotion, you do marketing, everything is about capturing the heart and mind of people. and it's for the better or for the worse. So what the ecclesia, what the kingdom of God is offering is we are offering a better version. We are offering a kingdom version. That is why we need to go into the different gates or influence. And we look at the Bible, of course, that's what God wanted Adam and Eve to do, Genesis 1:28. Fill the whole earth, right? That's why we say encourage people to get married, have children. Yeah, not very enthusiastic. So, and it's because, I kept thinking about this, why people are not so enthusiastic about marriage. And I kind of think about Noah, right? When he was 600 years old, he had no children. Why? Because he looked at the world and he was like, I don't want my children to come into this world. So people are a bit anxious, but at the same time, we know that this mandate continue. Acts 1:8, till the ends of the earth, the mandate continue. Okay? So because of that, we want to do this teaching. Then the other thing, of course, is church history. You know church history. I'm not going into detail today, but all the 500 years of restoration brought us into the Saints movement. Now, part one, I talk about Saints movement. I'm not going to repeat myself. But basically, one-line summary, all the ministry of the world can be done by ordinary people like you and me. Yeah. That's the Saints ministry. So we are in this season now, and just now, prophetic words, and I so like the prophetic word, GOAT, greatest of all time. Why? Because you can be the greatest version of yourself, and nobody else can replace you there. And that's a great thing, right? We're not in competition. We're not in competition with other people. It's not like there's only that many spots. It's not like a few 100,000 people trying to get 5-spot interview. Like people say, every time you have the big company, right? Google, Microsoft try to open up internship and the lines are so long, right? No, you are not competing against anyone except yourself. So ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And the other thing about Saints movement, and it's happening right now, is shaking up the religious status quo. And that's the thing that I really, it has been prophesied. I mean, I don't enjoy this kind of prophetic word, but it's happening because if the religious structure will not change, God will just choose another wineskin. It is happening, and how it will look, I really feel a great decentralization. That's why we need to understand the marketplace very, very well. We are not in competition. We are not having, it's not right to have the tension, but it will be there because of the season of shifting. Demon or religion, this is a religious spirit that continue to cause people to be in status quo. We are fighting this also. That's why we need to have the right understanding. And this is what Apostle Paul was telling his protege, right, Timothy. 2 Timothy 2, verses 1, 2, and 5. In the last days, are we in the last days? Yes. Difficult times will come. Whoa. And this is a person that had met a lot of difficulty, right? He had shipwrecked, he was killed, he was arrested, he was beaten, almost, actually, by the way, you know that the first time he was killed, and he went to heaven and he got resurrected, that's Paul, right? And this is a person who said that in the last days, it will be more difficult. Why? Because it's not physical affliction, for men will be lovers of self, holding to a form of godliness, although they deny its power. See, this is the worst kind of religious spirit. They say they are religious, but they are not. And these people, we have a way to describe these people. It's like die, they won't confess one. It's like they won't admit they are wrong, because that is how hardened their heart has become. So we're dealing with this kind of level of self. It is very, very challenging, but nevertheless, God is wanting us to make a breakthrough in this area. So that is why we're doing this teaching, okay? So that's why within the body of Christ, within ourselves, and you heard Chuck Pierce talk about the prophetic word, right? I'm dividing to send out. And that's really happening right now, because you do have the people who say, hey, we are also part of you, but they are not willing to follow the Spirit of God. The inability to accept the ways of the Spirit, that's really the problem that we're seeing. So in the end, to conclude why we do this, the Saints movement, we will have new breed. So a lot of us are new breed, and you don't look the same. So every time we think about Judah, how it will manifest, because Judah, the sound will go first. How Judah change is how the marketplace move will be like. And you know me, I'm always like, look, we live in a very unique place, right? And very interesting, Jerry talk about Uzbekistan and things like that. And I have some clients, actually, these people when they come, they cannot open bank account in Malaysia. It's very difficult because you do an AMLA. AMLA is money laundering list. You check all these countries is like red. And bank will not allow them to open. But yet, you look at Malaysia, it's very interesting, right? A few days ago, Prime Minister said we want to join BRIC. And it caused a lot of people to go crazy. But the more I think about it, it's not necessarily a bad thing because is he trying to do an underground channel so that we became oasis for quote-unquote terrorists? When I say quote-unquote terrorists, I'm talking about people that cannot be in a conventional system. So every time you have a challenge, you can see an opportunity. So very interesting because we dealt with people, Georgia, Kazakhstan. Actually, they look very European. And they were like, oh, I really need bank account. Can you provide me a local nominee? So nope, the bank will not allow it. So it's interesting that we are dealing with it. Because there are also a lot of them are Muslim majority, and they find Malaysia friendly. So anyway, all these things, eventually it will create tension. Everyone say tension. House marketplace. But we want to resolve this tension. We want to make sure that everyone understood your role. There is no competition. So this is the purpose of this series. Hopefully, we'll finish it in 6, 7, 8, I don't know how many times. All right, so very quickly, just recap. In part 1, we talk about body. And body is so important because you think about the body, right? Why God used the analogy of body? Why the ecclesia is structured as body? Because, like what I say, there is no competition. The hand don't compete with the eye. That's why it's called hand-eye coordination. You can't have it without one, right? Hand-eye. You know, try to have hand-eye coordination without the eye or without the hand. It's going to be like slap yourself. So that's the thing, that every part has its function by itself. It will have limited potential. But when you put it together, the potential becomes unlimited. Then the other thing is very, very important, and I think we need to get this right, is that the body, the positioning is by God. And that's why people ask, people always quote 1 Corinthians 14:1, eagerly desire all spiritual gifts. So does my desire override the designer? Of course not. And that's why I say there are many ways to look at it. It's like the desire helps you to process. But the other thing is, I personally believe 1 Corinthians 14:1 is limited to the 9 spiritual gifts. You can desire that, but not the other gift. But I could be wrong. But it's just something that we have to understand. At the end, God decides. We have to let Him be God, right? Then everyone, we contribute to the overall success. That's very important. And I think that's a part, especially in modern church, we became very individualistic. We always say, oh, you can do this, you can do that. Many of you know my teaching. I am very pro-choice in that sense. It's your will. Yesterday, BGR, right, so many questions, right? Michelle was saying, what is your choice? It's your choice. I was like, oh, it sounds so like me. And it's like, but it's true. But it's true. There is choice, but there is a corporateness. And when the corporate anointing comes, there is no choice. And you look at Israel, right? They try to, Korah, all those people, even Miriam and Aaron eventually say, hey, we have choice also. And God is like, really? Really? I chose to give you some revelation, but don't think yourself too high as a prophet. So that's why in the end, we all need to come together to contribute. And then this is the other part that is becoming more obvious in this season because of, especially now, if we talk about church history, it comes during the charismatic era. People have a lot of freedom, but they don't know the limit of the freedom. So what happens is people become like, oh, I don't need to be accountable. I can do whatever I want. And this will cause people to become Lone Ranger. So Lone Ranger, what happens to Lone Ranger? Lone Ranger are taken out first. So that's why body in part 1, and today we want to talk about the house. And now house ministry, you can't do it. So I'm going to do quite general kind of thing now. I'm going to say already, I'm not going to cover Judah today because Judah is a very specific topic. We will talk about it in hybrid. Because you think about house, Judah is one of the main functions, right? So we're not talking about Judah today, but I want to talk about some of the other functions that will help us to really understand. So to understand this, we really have to look at Jesus himself. Because he was on earth for how long? 3 years plus, right? And so towards the end, and he was preparing a wineskin. He was preparing a structure for his disciple. We call it church. We call it ecclesia, okay? And you know this scripture very well. We talk about it all the time. In fact, we're going to have our Oikos Ecclesia camp, right? So I know many of you have signed up, and we're going to talk more about that because it's so important to understand the dynamic. You can't have ecclesia without the Oikos. So many people want the ecclesia without the Oikos. We want the transformation without the building. Without the foundation, it doesn't happen. But let's look at what Jesus said, right? You know this verse very well. And he was gathering his disciples, and he started to ask them, any rumor, any saying? Who do they say I am? And it's not a trick question because they very well knew who he was, right? And Peter will be like, oh, I know who you are. So the whole thing. But the key point here, let's start with verse 18. And Jesus began to lay down, and we call this the prophecy of the ecclesia, okay? And Jesus said, I also say to you that you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church. So this is a key line here. I will build. Build is, later we'll look at two Greek words, oikos and ecclesia. And then we look at the characteristic. And the gates of Hades, hell will not overpower it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Now this last portion is really the definition of ecclesia. And that's why the English word church is really an unsuitable word. And if you know history, it is because when English Bible was first translated, King James II, his brother was Charles II, had got chopped off. You know English history, right? And then they became republic for a while under Oliver Cromwell. So the actual translation of ecclesia is parliament. Parliament is the one who chopped off Charles II's head. It's like, he will be like, OMG, no, cannot use the word ecclesia. So go and find a German word called church. And church is called, in German, it means house or sheep. So are you sheep? You are sheep, but you are also parliament. You are also congress. So that's why the English word church shortchange our identity. So what is ecclesia? I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth shall have been bound in heaven. Wow. Spiritual lawmaking. And whatever you loose on earth shall have been loosed in heaven. Wow. Does it look like house or sheep to you? You are more than house or sheep. So that's why build my church. That's really the concept of understanding house. But of course, the good news is in our Oikos Ecclesia, we'll talk about this again. So if you have signed up, please be there. Sometimes. Now, let's look at the two words. Okay, build. Come from the Greek word oikodomio, or short form oikos. So actually, oikodomio is more accurate, but oikos, we just say oikos. Everyone say oikos. So what's the meaning of oikos? It actually means a house builder. But it also means the process, the building, the construction. So when you look at it, build my church, I will construct, I will have a development, I will have a foundation that allows the supernatural law-making power of ecclesia to be out. So you see there is a link there. Build, other word you can think about it, it means not just build. Because one of the things about house is you need maintenance, right? Yeah. So you get a new house. How many of you ever receive a new key for a new house? Nobody? Okay, then we hope it will happen to you real soon. But when you take the new key and new house, the feeling is different 7 or 10 years later, and you're looking at, it's like... So recently we disposed our condo, right? So the condo, last time when we bought a condo, really it's because one day, it's very interesting because of a prophetic word, we drove past it and then I decided to buy it. 2 times I bought a house without even stepping into the house, okay? But anyway, I remember the facade was very nice, but now you look at it, it's kind of neat painting already. Really neat painting. And so we're telling the new buyer, the management already have a budget, 1.5 million to paint. And to paint the whole condo costs 1.5 million. Yeah, seriously. But once it's painted, repair, rebuild, restore. Those are the things necessary for the house, right? To promote, to set it in place, So all these are oikos. That's why oikos is not just building, a lot of restoration. You look at the pastoral house ministry, a lot of restoration, right? And that's why every day, those people involved with house ministry, what's their job? Sit down and talk to people. Yeah, Lord. Sit down and talk to people. And I'm like, I'm so glad that there are many gifted people, so I don't have to do that much. So, but that's the thing. You want to find people with the gift to build, rebuild, and restore. And it's very, very important. Restoration. Without restoration, there is no marketplace. That's why get this right. Don't be the early days marketplace ministry. They just go there without the foundation. That's why they fizzle out so quickly. Either they fizzle out or they become the world. See, that's the other extreme. They go there, they become so worldly. There is no standard, the word of God. There's no fear of God. Then we look at the second word, build my church. So I already told you church. So next time, don't think you are that kind of thing. Yes, we are sheep. Jesus is our is a shepherd, but it's much more than that. So the Greek word ecclesia, that's the English spelling, or you want the Greek spelling, ecclesia. I don't know how you want to pronounce it. C and K. But usually I just spell E-C-C-L, like easier. But E-K-K is more accurate, okay? Which actually means assembly of people, but not just assembly of people. They have power to make decrees and laws like parliament. Whoa, it's like we are not here to, 做礼拜, those of you who understand Mandarin, it's like come here to do church. No, we're not here to do church. We're here to make laws and decrees. That's why sometimes people are a bit weird, right? Oh, why you have the prophetic team? What are they doing? What's their function? Why the worship team also say something I don't understand? Oh, we're here to decree and make law. That's ecclesia. And Jesus described it like that, having the power and authority of heaven. Whoa, the source of your power is greater than any parliament on the earth. Because the parliament of heaven overrides everything else, right? In such a manner, and he described it even in Matthew 16, the power of hell will not be able to overcome it. So that's ecclesia. So that's why every time you think about the word church, it's a diminished word. It's a political correctness. King John II really hated parliament who chopped off his brother's head. Okay, end of church history. English legal system history. All right, so let's think about the two things, right? And we have the oikos, which is the building, the rebuild, the restoration. But without the oikos, you can't have the ecclesia. And this is really the problem we have. People want ecclesia. They want to do transformation. Oh, I want to go into arts and entertainment. I want to go into business. I want to become prime minister or whatever. But you can't have it without the building and rebuilding. So the house ministry, we are concerned about house today in this part. House is all about building, the oikos part, the restoration part. So those of you with gifting in the building, and of course, now all the fivefold operates on both houses. Don't ever think that oikos is only pastoral and evangelism. That's wrong thinking. That's too small of a thinking. But what is the focus of oikos? It's on the people. It's on the preparation to be sent out. See, there's another thing about the marketplace is without adequate training and foundation, you will be like lambs, just being prepared to be slaughtered. So that's why a lot of training, and now the training is becoming more and more marketplace, but it doesn't change the fact that a lot of the training still needs to be spiritual. You can't take away the spiritual dimension. That's why some people, in the past, we have more of this issue with men, right? Men are more generally more greed-minded, and they'll be like, oh, no need to be so spiritual. No need to do house cleansing. Why you want to do so much declaration? Some men don't like to talk one. So all these kind of things. But it is a balance between spiritual and natural. So we're doing those kind of training. So house, at the end, we are making sure the foundation. 5782, we talk about foundation so often, right? And you see land with foundation with no house. But without the foundation, you can't put things. And you want the building, you want the oikos to be done properly. Now, of course, in that way, it is true. House is more inward looking. More inward looking. Now, this is the time where inward looking is not a bad thing. Because if you don't do the right preparation, you can't go out. It's as simple as that. If you do business and you say, oh, I want to expand, some people come here and you get some marketing guru and say, oh, I can bring you to 7 countries. Well, if you don't have the foundation, people look at your account, people look at your profit and loss, people look at revenue and say, no, you can't even support half a country. So that's why it can be more inward looking, but we need to understand this principle. If the house is weak, the ecclesia will struggle. And this is a balance. Everyone say balance. So there is tension, but there is balance. And in days to come, you will really have to think which one you are more. And I don't want to hear the word 50-50 hybrid, okay? Because that's just a cop-out. You know what it's cop-out? Easy answer. I believe some of you are 50-50, but I really believe God is going to pull some more into oikos, some into more ecclesia. It's all right. Be sure of your identity and destiny. All right, so I'm going to look at 4 things very quickly, the dimensions of the house. We're going to look at the equipping nature for the house. Then I'm just going to mention very quickly, because there is also the marketplace, but this is actually a separate teaching. Then one of the things that really, I believe, differentiate house from marketplace is a prayer and word ministry. And of course, I think Judah. Judah is like tuna there. You can't replace tuna, right? That's what Chef Jiro said, right? You should watch the show. I mean, it used to be on Netflix. He's like so old, and it's like Obama went to his place but couldn't even finish all the sushi. But that's the thing. I don't think you can ever replace this. And there is a spiritualness. You know, every time you steward the art of God, I don't think you can fully do in marketplace. I don't think so. And so that's where some people are going to be stewards of the word, and you're going to be more oikos than ecclesia. It's okay. Look at your neighbor and say, it's okay. And then, of course, we want to look at it as a base for assignment. We're going to look at the example of Shiloh. Okay, very quickly. All right, so you know this one, right? This is the verse. This is usually the verse that is attributed to the function of oikos. Now, let's begin with the first. When you look at all these things, right, and people will be like, oh, must be some superhero minister, right, can do all these things, right? But look at verse 16. What did Jesus say? He who has believed. Who? An ordinary believer, right? Anyone who accepted Jesus as personal Lord and Savior and has been baptized shall be saved. But he who has disbelieved shall be condemned. But then here's the thing. These signs will accompany those who believe. Special minister? Superhero? No, everyone who believes. So these are what we call the basic, the foundation, and this is what the house must prepare people to be able to do. Minimum. Everyone say minimum. So what are the minimum? In my name, they will cast out demons. You go to talk to an ordinary believer today and ask them to do deliverance. I remember when I was in ministry school, okay, everyone is supposed to be minister, and there was somebody who could not speak in tongues, and the leader was, okay, go and pray so that this person receive the Spirit of God. And most of the people were like, oh, how to do? It's like, oh my goodness. So that's the thing. It is basic, but we kind of dial down. So you should be able to cast out demons. What else? They will speak with new tongues. I mean, we were in evangelical church for so long and nobody taught us to speak in tongues. Now, by the way, speak in tongues is not religious. Speak in tongues is so important for you to power out the revelation, right? Yeah. Then what else? They will pick up serpents if they drink, and if they drink any deadly poison, it will not hurt them. Okay, we'll explain it a little bit later because you'll be like, oh, it looks a bit crazy, right? They will lay hands on the sick and they will recover. So quickly, let's look at the foundation, because if you are in a house, you should be taught all these things. Otherwise, you're in the wrong house. Okay, cast out demon. Spiritual warfare. See, spiritual warfare, yeah, it sounds simple, but it's actually more than that. It's actually corporate deliverance. You have to be able to be in the place where the understanding of how demon works and casting them, you can apply it for yourself, you can apply it for your tribe, you can apply it for your family, but also your neighborhood, your city, and your nation. It has to have that. You know, we talk about scalability. You know, people talk about you have a technology, you have intellectual property. It is no use if you cannot scale it. It is no use. Let's say you have a technology. Oh, I have a new online game system. Oh, it's the best game in the world. Oh, by the way, only 20 people can play at one time. No scalability. It's a piece of trash. So that's why spiritual warfare must have this dimension. It can apply to big places and small places. And we saw Jesus demonstrate that, right? First, individual. Then, when he went to certain places, remember when he was causing the demon to go into the swine? That was a corporate, regional deliverance. Spiritual warfare. So that's why, in this aspect, and this is where a lot of the church, unfortunately, they don't do this properly. You have to be trained in proper spiritual warfare, proper protocol, proper principles. And sometimes you hear about people do office cleansing, site cleansing. It's like you really bang sun, right, how they do it. Because they don't understand that there is protocol, there is danger and things like that. And of course, during the World Prayer Movement, the late Apostle Peter Wagner and the spiritual warfare team, they took 10 years to develop all these things. And that's why we also want to train. But we are not focusing just on this. These are just foundation. Everyone says foundation. Okay, then some more. Speak in new tongue. I think Bishop Bill Hammer wrote a book, right? How many reasons to speak in tongue? 70 or 80? 70. Actually, most of us, we think about 2 or 3. No more already. You can think of 70. But anyway, one of the first things, now, of course, I was a believer for a long time, and when I was in university, it really became serious. But nobody, we were in a very traditional setting. Okay? How many of you can identify with that? Can't really speak in tongue. But one year, I remember when my mom was sick, and she went to, not Melbourne, Geelong. Geelong is the second largest city in Victoria. And we met this AOG pastor, and he would be like, oh, we can pray for you, and you can speak in tongue. So I think they pray for all of us, but somehow I'm the only one who could speak in tongue. But after that, I didn't do anything, but I felt like there is an increase in my revelation. I don't consider myself particularly prophetic. At that time, even now, I don't consider myself very prophetic, but it's like, but it's not something I do, but when you speak in tongue, there is a power generator that causes revelation. It causes us to receive the mind of Christ. Now, one of the things I remember, Michelle, I'm not sure if you noticed that the first time 2014, we were commissioned, right, and on the stage. Then you can't really see that easily with GOZ TV and things like that. But when you're very close up with them, they were actually speaking in tongue all the time. Yeah. And you don't see that. You say, oh, GOZ not speaking in tongue gathering. No, when they were up there, when they are prophesying, they were like, you better give me some revelation, or I have nothing to say. Hey, we're all the same. We're relying on the same Spirit. It's not a special category of believer. And there was a time, whoa, very interesting. Even Peter was doing that. So I find it very interesting. All right, pick out serpent and dream poison. Now, this is also spiritual warfare, but I want to suggest to you it's a different kind of dimension. It's an overcoming dimension. And this is the thing that, how do we say it? It's very hard to impart, right? So how do you train people to pick out snake and dream poison? Let me suggest to you how it happened. You allow people to go through things. Allow. And that's like parenting, right? At some point, you have to allow your children to do things and screw up. I mean, like teachers, right? At some point. So anyway, we're kind of trying out this weekend, right? They're having school exam. And for the first time, we're like, okay, study yourself. Actually, I remember when we were young, we always study ourselves, right? Whoever helped us with teaching? Of course, but I'll say our syllabus, primary school in my day, it's like, oh man, it's like kindergarten now. But seriously, we only have 4 subjects. But anyway, that's the thing, right? You have to allow people to experiment. And that's one of the things, right? They say why children today, they get sick very easily because they don't go out and play with the soil and things like that. They are like a little bit of bacteria, they are like already comatose for a while. So anyway, to conclude this part, how's the part of the training we need to train and cultivate is really toughness. Everyone say toughness. Toughness is very hard to directly train, but if you allow people to go through different circumstances and you process with them and they kind of get some guidance and they try again, then that's how you develop toughness. There's no formula one. And we always talk about those people who do deliverance, healing, and you know already that you can have two identical persons in the same family, same trauma, but one person, the trauma is like so deep. It's like 20-story deep. The other one is like just like a flick of a mosquito. So everyone is built differently, but we all have an obligation to become tougher. Tougher. Then the other thing, of course, is really the place for people to process and receive revelation. Again, this is not easy to teach. There's no formula to receive revelation. But by allowing people to go through certain phase and certain process, hopefully they are in a position to process and find it. You see, revelation, the very definition of revelation means that it has to be personal. If it doesn't mean something unique to you, it's not a revelation. If I tell you something, it's not revelation. It's I tell you something. But when we use the word revelation, you get a unique, individual, specialized, personalized download from God. And this cannot be taught. This can be activated. This can be encouraged, but it cannot be taught. It cannot be copied. You try to copy revelation, don't even try that. We will know. It's very obvious, right, when people try to copy prophesying. So obvious, right? We're like, stop. So that's why in the end, I really believe this is a house of revelation. It's a house of prayer. And there is grace. That's why we want to develop that grace. Then, of course, finally, very important, heal the sick. And heal the sick, of course, is not just bodily sickness. There is the whole restoration, because sometimes people, the soul is so broken up, so fragmented. And wholeness. In the end, you want to cause a person to become whole. Why? Because when the person, he or she is whole, the true identity can finally come up. That's why so often why the true identity did not come up, because it's not complete yet. A portion of the soul is missing. So actually, when you look at heal the sick, it's not just physical, but there's a soulish dimension to that. All right, so that's what I want to talk about, the equipping for the house. Let's quickly look at equipping for marketplace. Now we have an entire session on this, but I just want to quickly mention this so that you understand. Because when we talk about equipping, it really can happen in both places, in the house or outside the house. But of course, later I want to kind of propose some question for you to think about, okay? Now, equipping for the house, of course, this is the most well-known verse, right? We talk about the 5 ministers. What are the 5? Okay. Every time in Cebu, you look around, there's a poster. We have no poster here. We are a very covert building here, okay? But you know the 5, right? The apostle, the prophet, evangelist, pastor, teacher. Okay, this one is teacher. Teacher is a balance, okay? So all these things, for what? For the equipping of the saints, for the work of service, to the building up of the body of Christ, until we all attain to unity of faith. So this is what we call the wider work of service. Then, of course, you can also refer to Matthew 28, talking about discipling our nation, because that's a wider work. So that means now you have the oikos work done, you need to go outside. You need to do what's necessary. So when you look at these 5 officers, the 5 we just mentioned, is primarily a house and equipping anointing. Now, of course, we want to explore also that, are we going to see the 5 equipping in marketplace? Now, if you talk about the 5 anointing in terms of discipling nation, in terms of capturing 7 mountains, in terms of transformation, yes, I agree that it should be there. But should they be doing training outside? 15 years ago, when we first started to do all these things, Apostle Michelle, remember we were talking to two of the local apostles, and we asked them this question, because we know we're going to be very marketplace. And is it going to be like that? But I think the Lord is still kind of showing us revelation for that, okay? Now, just one word on equipping. It's from the word, the Greek word katatismos. It means to align. And that's why when you see the word align, you are not just here for information. And I know a lot of people like to come here or want to take photos of the slide. Sometimes they even ask for PowerPoint. And some people don't give PowerPoint one. And the reason is because it's not about information, it is about impartation. And yes, we do impartation, right? All the regional gathering, there's always impartation. But that is the level 1 impartation, lowest level. You want greater impartation, you need alignment. That relationship allows you, and we saw so many examples, right? Paul and Timothy, Moses and Joshua, things like that. There's so many examples that without that, Elijah, Elisha, without that, and all of them almost at least 5-6 years together. So there is a value in time alignment relationship. Okay, here's the thing. I already asked this out. Can the equipping be done from the marketplace? That means, can the marketplace really replace the house? And really, at this point, if you ask me, I would say no. Because equipping is really the function of the house. And when you are in marketplace, you are not thinking so much about equipping. You are really about conquest already. You are more like, oh, I'm Joshua. I'm going to get all the land from Canaan. Of course, you are training for marketplace stuff, but I'm talking about the house oikos equipping. So I don't think so, but God can change our paradigm and things like that. Then, of course, some people are more in micro church, and we saw many examples of micro church, right? Daniel and his friends. Now, very interesting when you think about Daniel and his friends, there is no mentions about training. The only training mentioned is the training they received from Babylon government. So I think microchurch is really, you have to think of it more like a processing center for you, and your training could be more marketplace and less spiritual. So at this point, I don't really think that marketplace and microchurch can replace the house in equipping, but we'll see how God is moving. Let's not be religious about that, okay? All right, let's move on to the next one. Prayer and ministry of word. 2 more to go. I will stop on time today, 100%. Now, this is perhaps the biggest difference between house and marketplace ministry. Now, of course, we talk about Judah, but you think about prayer and ministry of word, I think this is also like tuna. You can't really replace it, maybe. So, because we look at marketplace, it is more about shifting, it's more about you change society, right? You go into education mountain, you are not happy with the education system, you want to change certain things, Like now all the discussion about DLP, right? Dual language program. And some of you, if you're very pissed off with that, then maybe that's your mountain to go in and change. I look at DLP, I'm like, I don't feel anything. So it's like everyone have something that God calls you to be concerned with, and you go in there, you want to change. That's marketplace, right? And how you do that is with the power and blessing of heaven. But then look at all the example on teaching of word. Acts 6:4, of course, this was the time where they had more and more believers, right? And all of a sudden, you had the widow, and people didn't get enough food, people didn't get enough chair. Like small thing, and they'll be like, Peter, where are you? And John, where are you? And they're like, okay, we need to appoint the 7 deacons. But then after that, he concludes, but we will devote ourselves to prayer and to the ministry of the word. So I think this really kind of sum out that, yes, you have the house, you have the macro house, you are going into the marketplace, but in terms of what the apostles of the house are focusing, they say, look, we have to continue to pray and to minister word. That is our main job. Then look at Paul. Just before he went into Ephesus, right? After Corinth, before Ephesus. Acts 18:5. And what did he say? Paul began devoting himself completely to the word. Completely. That means at some point, he's not even doing signs and wonder and things like that. His main focus is on the teaching of the word. Solemnly testifying to the Jews that Jesus was Christ. So that's why you see that the apostle focused on that. And I already mentioned Acts 6. So in the busyness of ministry, right, in Acts 6, but here it's also the same, right? We can have project, we can have this one, need to train tag team, or whatever. The apostles, the house leaders, never neglected ministry of word and prayer. And that's why I believe this is something that is irreplaceable for the house. If your house don't have prayer and word, then don't call yourself a house. You are not the house of God. And this is what Isaiah 56:7, and Jesus quoted this, right? For my house will be called a house of prayer for all the people. But you see, when people read this verse from the old paradigm, they think, oh, house of prayer, you offer prayer. That's the function of priest. But we know there is a function of prophet also. prayer should be two-way, right? But a lot of traditional believers look at this verse, oh, you all come here, bye-bye, and those kind of things, right? Oh, pray, and that's it, like a ritual. And that's why when Peter said to the apostle that the apostles will continue to devote to prayer, he was speaking about cultivation of corporate revelation. House of prayer is not for you just to offer prayer, but it's for you to hear revelation. So you can call yourself house of prayer. I mean, it's a biblical word, but I don't really like the word house of prayer because of the historical connotation. Then the prayer tower, house of prayer are just the season of church history that are very weird, very bizarre, bizarre. So, I mean, you can call, like GOZ call themselves what? Revelation Center. That's more like it, right? But anyway, it's just terminology. But what's important is that we are cultivating revelation. That when things happen, we can say, hey, we heard this before, that this is going to happen to East Malaysia, this is going to happen here, because of the cultivation of revelation. That is the purpose of the ministry of prayer here. Then you combine with ministry of word. Believers can be trained and activated. That's why again we say, you can't really teach people step by step, but you can activate people into the ministry. See, at the end of the day, prayer and words, revelation, all these things, help us with discernment. And again, when you hear the word discernment, it must be personalized. If I tell you something, it's not discernment for you. If someone tells you something, it's not discernment. But if you receive the word directly from the Spirit of God, it is discernment. Okay? So that's why so many things, and when we talk about BGR, right, it's discernment. It's like after considering all the things, the pros and cons, I decide. Okay? That's a bit sidetracked. So these are the core functions of the house, okay? All right, the last part we want to talk about that the house is also important as a base. B-A-S-E. What is base? Base is like your fortress, right? Or your house, right? Your drinking station, whatever you want to call it. And it's very interesting. I mean, recently, actually a while ago, there was this Netflix show on Tour de France, right? Yeah. Now there's season 2. And it's very interesting because you look at them, they were like cycling across the whole country, and the team have a base, and their base is like in some truck like that. And the truck will follow them. And after a good day, or everyone drinks champagne. Bad day, it's like, wow, super foul mood, and everyone like want to kill each other. But nevertheless, base is the place you meet together to rest for the better or for the worse, right? And we saw that Israel had a base. And Shiloh, how many of you know Shiloh, right? Shiloh was a location. Now, Joshua 18 is towards almost the end of their conquest already, verses 1 to 3. Then the whole congregation of the sons of Israel assembled themselves at Shiloh. By the way, they stayed in Shiloh for almost 400 years. Joshua's era, Judges' era, Eli, Samuel, and then even, who was the last one? King Saul for 40 years. That's the last one, before David really moved the ark to Jerusalem, okay? And set up the tent of meeting. Tent of meeting is what we've been saying all this while in Pentecost. The whole tabernacle of Moses is called tent of meeting. And the land was subdued before them. Wow. What happened? They already succeeded, right? So by this time, they already subdued almost 70% of Canaan. And there remain among the sons of Israel 7 tribes who had not divided their inheritance. It's like, it's yours already, but don't want to go in. So it's like, I have free land for you. Oh, don't want to go in because I don't want to be farmer. I don't want to be, some people can be like that. Don't want the inheritance because they don't want to work. So Joshua said to the sons of Israel, how long would you put off entering to take possession of the land which the Lord of your fathers has given you? It's like you should do something. But anyway, let's talk about Shiloh. And Shiloh here was the base for Israel for the conquest of Canaan, 40 years. But after that, they continued to stay there for almost another 350 years. So what does that mean? It remained their political and religious base. So much so that, remember Hannah's husband went there annually to serve in the temple, right? They don't call it temple yet. It's our tent of meeting at that time. So it's like everyone converge. It's like later on you have the temple, every feast they come. So that is really the Shiloh. Every time you want to think about assignments or transformation of reformation, discipling of nation, you have to find a place where it can be your base, where you can come for training, where you can come for some kind, and we have kind of this, right, our regional gathering and things like that. These are like the base for us, right? What else? Of course, Shiloh, tent of meeting, is the place where the Ark of Covenant rested for a long time, 400 years. And even towards the end of the era of Judges, remember one of the scripture, it says that those days the ark was still in Shiloh and therefore they could inquire of God. Every time, even in the era of Judges where people do their own things all the time, every time the leader decided we will inquire of the Lord always speak to them. That is one of the very interesting things, right? So it's almost like so many of us are activated to hear the voice of God, but how many, sometimes we don't ask God. It's like, oh, should we do this? I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? You want to make a major decision, you should be praying, but sometimes you'll be surprised people don't pray. People will be like, oh, out of God, you're here, you don't understand, so I'm not going to talk to you. So, some people have like that because, I don't know, we all go through that kind of cycle. So already mentioned, it's a place where people could expect receiving direction. Then, of course, very interesting in Joshua 18, it's a temporary place where the tribes were undecided about what to do. So every time we're in a seasonal shift, this is the 5th year of pay, but we are still in a seasonal shift because we know that God is still dividing. And that's kind of encouraging but scary. You don't want to be the divider out, right? You don't want to be a divider out. So that's why the base becomes a place of grace. The 7 tribes don't know what to do. And then Joshua will be like, how long you want to decide? So I believe some of you, God is saying, how long you want to remain undecided? Because are you in or are you out? So that's the base. That's the grace of God. And you can think of it as a place of training, a place to prepare for spiritual and natural assignments, all these things that you can do. Okay, so finish already. So let me just quickly recap again. The house, of course, we are talking about equipping for the house. Mark 16, these are minimum. If you are someone that is a believer, you should find a house that can teach you the minimum. Spiritual warfare, speak in tongue, activated, all those things. Heal the sick. You may not have the gift of healing, but you should be able to do some impartation or restoration. Right? You should be able to do that. I mean, you may not be gifted in that area, but you should be equipped. Then, of course, marketplace, we talk about katatismos. If you really want success in marketplace, you have to have alignment. And Apostle Michel always say this, don't just say alignment, because over the last 10, 15 years, we have so many people who say they want to align, but it's only, they say only. It means nothing because the action did not reflect that. So that's why you can look at Apostle Paul, and towards the end, he'll be like, oh, these people deserted me, right? Alexander the metal worker deserted me. He named them some more in the Bible. Their names are immortalized forever. I mean, you don't want to be like that. Someone mention you in the book, right? This person is a very, very bad. One day. But I think, Michelle, you say you will change the name, right? Or you can say, this book shall be published the day I go to heaven or something. Then the real name can come out. Then, of course, we have the prayer ministry, the prayer and ministry of word, which I think is a tuna. You can't really replace it. Really, I don't really like tuna, but those people who are sushi connoisseurs say you can't replace it. Yeah, connoisseur. Then, of course, you have the base for assignment. And I really feel like this is a time God is allowing people to congregate here. And even if they are not sure what they want to do, they are not sure whether this is for them, they are not sure this style of advancement is for them. I totally get that. That you are here, you look at some of us, you feel a bit, it's like, I'm not sure I want to be like them, but it's okay. That's why the 7 tribes, they were like unsure. Do they want to go in there? And Joshua is like, come on, make up your mind. Make up your mind. So Lord, I just pray that we will begin to understand what it means to be in the house. I really see that some of you, your greatest gift is in the house. Don't feel that it is a tension or competition with marketplace. I hear the Lord say that I'm going to cause the house to become even more prominent in days ahead. And there will be many layers of house, many gifting that needs to be activated and recognized. In fact, I see a lot of commissioning. Now, because so many people have come and talked to us and say commissioning because of what Apostle Michelle said, the last feast. But I really see commissioning for the house first, because oikos, you must oikos the ecclesia. You must build first, otherwise there is no ecclesia. So of course we can send out marketplace people, but we want to send out the house people. All right, so that's it, right on the dot.